Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our virtual panel. My name is Chelsea Sheehan. I'm one of the admissions counselors here at Sarah Lawrence. Today, we actually have some of our senior interviewers helping answer any questions that you have about the interviewing process, not only at Sarah Lawrence College, but at a selective institution in general. So we really appreciate all the questions that you've been sending in via email as well as our Twitter feed. You can still post questions on our Twitter using our Twitter handle SLCadmit using the hashtag SLCinterview. So now for our first question, Natasha, if you want to start off by answering this, what's an interview like at Sarah Lawrence, and what really makes a student stand out and allows you to remember them and make it an impactful interview?
So Sarah Lawrence is really interesting because it's really a between two. So it's a senior in college at Sarah Lawrence, and there's a senior in high school. So it's really a great way for a prospective student to be able to sit down and really have a conversation with someone who's, really working at Sarah Lawrence, is studying at Sarah Lawrence, is interacting with other Sarah Lawrence students. So you really get a sense of what being here on campus and what studying here is like. And so I think that is pretty unique to our school and this system in general. And I was someone who was an interviewer and also did an interview while I was at Sarah Lawrence, or when I was looking at Sarah Lawrence. So it definitely was a great experience.
Great, thank you so much. So during the next couple minutes, we're going to try and answer as many questions as we can. The next question, maybe Pauline, if you want to answer this, just talk about some of the do's and don'ts about interviewing at Sarah Lawrence.
I think the main one that I can think of is mainly just to be really excited and passionate about what you're talking about, because all of the people that really come to mind for me is people that I've really enjoyed interviewing, and people that have really stuck with me after they left were people who were just excited about learning and passionate about what they were doing. And so that I think is the biggest do, and I guess it's converse then don't not be passionate. I think that's really the major one.
Great, thank you so much. So as I said, we have a whole bunch of questions coming in. So as our prospective students, post any questions that you have on Twitter. The next question is, a student wants to know, is it only one-on-one, or can you do a group interview?
Okay, well, interviews are only one-on-one. It is between the senior interviewer, us, and then you as a senior. So.
Great. We love the short and sweet answers. The next question from a student from California. She doesn't know if she'll be able to make it to campus. Is there any other way to do an interview besides interviewing here on Sarah Lawrence's campus?
Yes. So in terms of interviewing, we have a couple of options for students who can't physically make it to campus. So you can sign up directly on our website for a Skype interview, and that again is with a current Sarah Lawrence senior. So you're still able to talk with a Sarah Lawrence student and be able to get the same experience, but don't have to travel across the country to do it. You can also meet with any of our fabulous alumni who are located in your area, and you can do that as well, or you could sit down with an admissions counselor. So there are a couple of options for you, but all of that information is directly on our website.
Thank you very much. The next question that we have is, someone's guidance counselor told them, don't bring up any flaws or anything negative in their life. Is it okay to bring up maybe some struggles that I've had in, during my life or in high school during the interview process?
I definitely think it's okay to bring up flaws or issues or whatever it is that you've had, but just to highlight it in a way that shows that you've improved, you've recognized what you did wrong if it was something that you did, and just to show how things have changed for the better. I think if you show it in that light, rather than just in the light of putting yourself down or putting the situation down, it definitely shows the best side of you.
Great, thank you, Bronte. This is probably one of the most popular questions that came in through Sarah Lawrence, both our email and our Twitter feed, is what should an interviewee wear? What is the attire like?
I think it really kind of depends on what makes you feel comfortable. We're not looking for anything in particular, just of course look presentable, but we're not looking for you to be dressed in a big suit or anything. We just, we want to come talk to you. So
Exactly.
Great, thank you. The next question, I don't know if maybe each one of you want to answer it, but do you guys ask the same questions to every interviewee, or do you have a favorite question that you ask and, throughout the interview process?
Yes. So my favorite question is about conference work. So if you, as a student, could create any conference project, what would you do? Why would you do it? And how would you go about doing your research? And I always say that it kind of can exist in a vacuum, So if the sky's the limit with this question. I just want to be able to see what your thought process is and like what your passions and your interests are when it comes to doing a research project.
Yeah, same with me. I also always ask the same questions, and that is actually my favorite question. And I also frame it in the sense of saying, if you had unlimited money, if you had all of the people to back you up, you have the manpower, whatever it is, we just want your idea. And you can either teach that class or you can sit in on that class, because sometimes you have a course you really want, but you don't want to teach it. You want to sit in and learn. So that's really how I frame it. But yeah, the make your own course here is my favorite.
yeah, that's one that I like to use as well. That's always my favorite because people come up with really cool ones where they're just like, I want to incorporate like psychology and history and educational theory and make it a whole big class about like women's studies, and you're just like, awesome, that sounds great. And so that's one that I really like answering. And then as for like whether you ask the same questions every time, I think there are like certain key points that I'm trying to hit. So I'm going to always ask you, of course, why you're looking at Sarah Lawrence, because that's kind of an obvious one. We just want to be sure that like you're looking at us for good reasons and that you're genuinely interested in the school. And then there are some things where I'm gonna like kind of check in on like some of the projects that you've been doing just to kind of see what you've been up to in high school. But then there are also going to be a lot of variable ones because if you tell me that you're interested in film, I'm gonna ask you about like what specifically you're interested in, like if this is more like screenwriting or if it's like a film viewing kind of thing. So like there are key points that we're hitting, but I think that like of course we're like tailoring this interview to you as well, because again this is supposed to be a conversation, and so we're trying to make it like a conversation.
Definitely a good point.
Great, thank you, ladies. If you're just joining us, I just want to welcome you to our virtual panel. Today's panel will be talking about just the interviewing process, not only at Sarah Lawrence, but at selective institutions in general. So you can post any questions that you may have using our Twitter handle at SLCadmit, using the hashtag SLCinterview, or you can also post your questions on the YouTube page below. The next question that we have that came in is, are the interviewees allowed to ask questions to the interviewer? And if so, what type of questions are being asked?
You can definitely ask questions. Sometimes I get questions just about the conferences. What are conferences? What kind of conference projects have you worked on? Sometimes I get questions about just their application process, because sometimes you're worried about it, and it's okay to be worried about your application process. I've had some transfer students who are worried about how things will transfer, and if I can't personally answer the question, I can definitely find the person who can, but feel free to ask.
I've had questions about study abroad, about internships is a really big thing, about getting involved in student clubs and organizations, all of which I've done. So it's definitely those are great questions to ask, and then hopefully to be able to get an answer from someone who has done it. So that's.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions about like if the students are interested like specifically in film or theater or politics or something, then they'll ask like questions about those programs just to kind of see like what the classes are like. And especially like if I've done any work in those classes, then of course it makes it very easy to answer because I can just tell them about my experiences, and yeah, again, kind of refer to my own conference projects and things like that as well. But like, yeah, absolutely, ask questions.
Yes.
Like, this is what we're here for.
Great, thank you so much. The next question, just a quick one, is how long does an interview usually take? But also, after you do the interview, how does that factor into the prospective student's application, and what happens after the interview is completed?
So the interviews are no longer than 30 minutes, usually 25 to 30 minutes. And after the interview, I also tend to say this in the interview, that we take notes, and then those notes will be applied to a write-up that we do. It's sort of a supplement to your application, aside from the essays, aside from the grades, and aside from recommendations. So it's just another way that we get to see a side of you that may not be shown through the essays and the grades.
Thank you. The next question that just came in is the student wants to know what's more important. Is it important to be more genuine or to be more professional in the interviewing setting?
That's a good question. I always say be genuine. Obviously, there is a certain level of professionalism that everyone should have. And again, I want you to kind of think about it as putting your best foot forward. So you're having a conversation with someone who's at an institution that you want to be at, so you want to be able to present yourself in the best way. So I think that is a balance of both professionalism, but also just being genuine. Be yourself, be true to who you are, and let that kind of shine in your interview.
Great. Thanks so much, ladies. The next question is, are interviews mandatory? Are they recommended? Do a lot of the prospective students interview here on campus?
Well, they are not mandatory, but we encourage students to interview. And I do believe that a lot of the students who apply here come for interviews.
It's definitely a good idea, just because, like, this is something where we get to see a side of you where you get to just talk to us about yourself. And so that's always, like, I mean, I think, like, an opportunity like that is something that shouldn't be passed up. So if you can do it, you absolutely should.
Great. One student wants to know if they can bring a resume or a portfolio and more, artistic supplements, things like that. Are they able to bring that to an interview to share with you?
Yes, so you are more than welcome to bring a resume, and what we'll do is we'll take that information and add it to your application. In terms of a portfolio, do know that we do have a part in the application where you can upload your portfolio, so you wouldn't necessarily have to bring it into the actual interview. You can always do that as part of your application, but if you just but do know there are sections on the actual Common Application where you can upload your resume and your portfolio. But if you want to bring it, we'll take it.
Great, thank you, Natasha. The next question is, for some students, the interviewing process is nerve-wracking, and that's why we're doing the panel here today. We're hoping to ease any stress that you may have in correlation with the interviewing process. But what happens if a student that you're interviewing forgets to tell you something? Is there any way to get in contact with you after the fact, or if there's something really important that they meant to bring up during the interview process?
Yes, absolutely. This is like, we always give our emails to students afterward, and like that's totally understandable. This isn't intended to be like a nerve-wracking or scary thing, but sometimes it can be, just because you're not used to doing interviews.
And the word interview is scary.
Yeah, that's just kind of an inherently scary word. So it happens, and if that does happen, or even if you just want to update us on what you're doing, or like reach out and keep in touch afterwards, then you always have our email after.
Great, thank you. The next question is they want to know if the interviews are recorded. And then that's pretty much a quick question. So if you each want to talk about why you wanted to become a senior interviewer at Sarah Lawrence.
Okay, so I said a bit earlier, during the interviews, we do take notes, but know that it is not recorded. Again, the notes are taken for the write-ups that we do after. And I guess for the senior interviewer question, I became a senior interviewer because I really like talking to students who are interested in Sarah Lawrence. I feel like that area before you become a student, but you're really excited about it, there's just a passion there, and I really like talking to students about, when I was there, how I felt about it, and just encouraging them to come here, and, it's, if they want to be here, it can be the right place for them. I also love talking to the parents. It's really fun. I love joking around with them. It's just a nice place to be.
I liked the kind of one-on-one aspect that you get as a senior interviewer with a prospective student, that you're able to sit down with them and have a conversation with them about their passions, about their interests, about why they're looking at Sarah Lawrence. And then it's also a space where I can, you know, explain to them what I've done and hopefully give them some sort of idea about what their 4 years may look like. It's also kind of I think it's like a bit of an introduction to the way that Sarah Lawrence will operate for the students within their next 4 years if they decide to come, meeting with professors one-on-one as well. So it's very individualized, and I really do like that close-knit feeling that you get when you're an interviewer.
Honestly, for me, like, for one thing, just generally speaking, I like people. I like people a lot, and I really like talking to them, and I love hearing their stories, and I love hearing about what they're doing and what they're passionate about, just because all those things are so human, and I really love interacting with that. And so this is really kind of the perfect job to be able to do that. But I also, more specifically, feel that Sarah Lawrence has given me so much. It has given me an understanding of myself and a sense of purpose that I don't know I could have found somewhere else. And so this is a really good way, I think, to sort of unite those two aspects, where I get to talk to people now who are just as like passionate and interesting as so many of the people that I've met at Sarah Lawrence, and I can tell them about my experiences, and you know, I can have a hand in helping them maybe get something out of this place in the same sort of way that I have. Then I think that, you know, that's a good job to have.
Great. The next question is, a student wants to know if a parent can sit in on an interview while you guys are doing the interview.
No, sorry.
No. No, this is meant to be an interview for you. You know, we want this to be an interaction with you, and sometimes, you know, if somebody else is sitting in, then, you know, it's a little bit harder to like answer questions genuinely, right, or
comfortably.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to make sure that you are comfortable, like, conversing with us, and just with us.
Exactly.
Without any audience members.
Great. This question actually just came through our Twitter feed, and the student wants to know, are there anything specific traits that you're looking for a student during the interview? So any traits you're looking for?
Passion is really important.
Someone who loves learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah, and someone who's like not just who loves learning, but who loves learning in a very particular sort of way. Like someone who's really like willing to engage with the material and like look for new ideas and new ways of looking at it. Like somebody who can be innovative and creative with a topic as well. And of course, like Bronte said, just somebody who's like excited and passionate about what they're doing. That counts for a lot with me.
Great, thank you. The next one is, a student wants to know, how do you know if a prospective student did their homework about Sarah Lawrence? Are you able to tell if they know a lot about, you know, whether it's the academic structure or just the campus itself? Are you able to really understand if the student did a little bit of background before coming into the interview?
Yes.
Yes.
And for me, the way I figured that out is first through the why Sarah Lawrence question, and then you tell me the reasons why you like Sarah Lawrence, and also when I ask about the, you know, if you could make your own course at Sarah Lawrence, the first thing I ask before that is if you had a chance to look at the courses that we've had, because I want to make sure you have an idea of the classes that we have here, and it's not the typical, you know, writing 101. And if you have that basic understanding, then you'll be able to really think outside of the box and make your own course, so to speak.
Right, and just jumping off of Bronte's point, specifically with the courses, I ask about the conference projects, because that is so much of what you do at Sarah Lawrence, and that really defines your 4 years, because you are creating your own conference project. And so I want to make sure that students completely understand what you're doing, and you can definitely see that, you know, students who've done their research will say, like, yeah, I want to do this as my conference project, I want to do this as my conference project. And you don't necessarily have to come in knowing exactly what you want to do, but just wanting to be willing to kind of try something different and explore and experiment.
Yeah, definitely. I think also, like, yeah, the YSLC thing is a particular source of that, just because, like, it really says something for, like, if you're giving me very general sorts of things, then, like, that's not so good. Or, like, even if, like, questions that you're asking, of course, like, you don't have to know, like, everything about the school. Like Natasha said, it's not like you have to come in, like, having 4 years of conference projects planned. But like, if I have to explain to you what a don is, then like it doesn't sound like you've done very much research beforehand, just because that is kind of a critical point of what we do. You know, just things like that.
Great, thank you, ladies. The next question I think I'm actually going to tackle because it'll be a little bit easier to hear from an admissions counselor's standpoint. A question that just came through our Twitter feed is, how close does an interview affect your acceptance or rejection at Sarah Lawrence? And I would say that this is for most selective institutions in general. Here at Sarah Lawrence, when we're reviewing the application, it really is a holistic approach. So we look at things such as your grades, your GPA, what are your recommendations saying about you, the writing samples that you included, and if you so choose to do an interview, the interview write-up. So as you guys are learning all about, you know, our senior interviewers, they're doing a great job answering these questions for you, and they do that write-up, and we, as the admissions counselor staff, we see these write-ups, so we get to know you a little bit more on a personal level. So the interview is not here to harm your application process at all. It's here so we get a better understanding of who you are and you know, what it is about you that we think will make you excel in the Sarah Lawrence environment. So I don't want you guys to think that the interview will make or break your application. It's not like that at all. It really is a holistic process that will help strengthen your application as a whole. Now back to the senior interviewers. I don't need to do any more talking. One question that just came through is there something in the interview process or during the interview that someone should never do? A tricky question, yes, I know.
If you're trying, I mean, you shouldn't, but if you're trying to impress me, this is really hard. In an interview, treat us as polite friends. I feel like that's the best way to put it. So we're having a conversation and we are in a sort of friendship, but you still should be polite and respectful to us. And anything outside of that is something you shouldn't do.
Thank you, Bronte. A very tough question that you answered, and I appreciate it, and I know the prospective students appreciate it as well. Another question that just came through is, what if I did poorly in a class in high school? Is this something that I should bring up during the interview process?
I've had students in the past bring those things up because maybe it was a class that they struggled throughout their entire year with, and they did make some progress, but it still was, you know, maybe not the best grade. But overall, they're a really great student, and so maybe that is something that you want to emphasize, because a transcript can only say so much. But if you, as the student, provide some information and say that, you know, this was a really challenging class for you for whatever reason, or maybe some extenuating circumstances, excuse me, any of that could be a reason as to why a grade doesn't necessarily look as great. But I definitely think that an explanation is always nice because it helps you as a student, especially with just a transcript. It adds a little more to it.
And a word of comfort on that note as well, like I've had kids come in for interviews where like they have told me about those things too, and like I know that like that can seem very scary and like, you know, oh, like that's 1,000,000 points off, but like, you know, if you are overall somebody who is really engaged and really passionate and like, you know, has made a really good impression in other ways, like that's not going to stop being true because you got a C in math or something. You know, like if this is just one small part of what you're doing and overall this has been a fantastic interview, then like it's going to be okay. Don't worry.
Thank you, ladies. The next question is, are the interviews mostly about what I'm achieving academically, or do you want to know about the extracurriculars and what I do in my free time?
We definitely want to know what you're doing in your free time and extracurriculars. That's part of the things that we ask. Sometimes I also just ask, you know, recommend a book or a movie or a TV show just to see what you're doing lately, what, you know, has caught your interest, you know, what has really stayed with you, things like that. So definitely.
Part of being at college, especially as an undergraduate student, is not just the academic work, but it's also the social life that comes with it. So are you able to network with other students and hopefully create lifelong friendships? Are you willing to kind of go outside of your comfort zone and meet new people and try different things? That's really what we want to see. We want to make sure that you get a full balance, that you are fulfilled academically, but that you're also reaching your highest potential when it comes to outside of the classroom. And so we want to see that.
Yeah, the whole point of these interviews is to find out more about you, and you do not end with your grades.
Right.
So, like, yeah, we would definitely want to hear more about your extracurriculars, because again, we want to hear about you and all the things that make up you.
And maybe that'll show your passion, which is important.
Right. We said passion about 30 times in the last like 15 minutes. So clearly we're looking for that.
Very nice. Thank you, ladies. As we're coming to a close with the panel, I want to just thank everyone who's watched our virtual panel today. As always, if you have any additional questions, you can always tweet at us using our Twitter handle, SLCadmit. You can use the hashtag SLCinterview. You can always email us at slcadmit@saralawrence.edu. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have, not only about the interviewing process, but also the application process. We're here to help and ease your transition into college in any way that we can. One question that just came up is, do we intend to do more live panels in the future? And yes, we absolutely do. So keep reading your email and checking for updates. We'll be sending out updates as the virtual panels come along. And then just one last question for my for my panelists. I want to thank you so much for all of your answering your questions. We really do appreciate it. And if you just want to leave the prospective students with anything else that you may have, any other suggestions or advice that you may have for students watching this virtual panel to give them a better idea about the interviewing process, maybe something that you haven't brought up, or just kind of want to reiterate something you've already said.
Passion.
Yeah, let's say it one more time.
Passion.
And also, just we're excited to talk to you.
Yeah.
We really genuinely are. Like we're not like trying to set this up so it's this big scary thing. We're not like, this isn't a bunch of sullen people who'd rather be doing something else. Like, we're excited to talk to you. We really are. So you don't have to be worried or afraid or anything. We're here.
And hopefully you're excited to talk to us, too.
Exactly.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, once again for watching. I want to thank our amazing panelists, Pauline, Natasha, Bronte. You guys were great. Now, if anyone's interested in scheduling an interview, you can sign up at slc.edu. You can interview with one of our fabulous senior interviewers right here now that you learned a little bit more about them. And once again, if you have any questions in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day, guys.